Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with us today. It's great to be here for this month's Third Thursday program. Today, we welcome Amy Kligman. Since 2015, Amy has been the Executive Artistic Director at Charlotte Street Foundation. Her career and experience as an exhibiting artist and grassroots curator and arts administrator spans 20 years of studio and exhibition work, independent curating and organizing, and artist-run projects. In 2011, Kligman was one of the team of 5 artist curators who established Plug Projects, an artist-run project space in Kansas City's West Bottoms. It hosted a robust and nationally recognized calendar of exhibitions and artist-centered programming. She's also worked in creative leadership in the greeting card industry across departments, emphasizing innovation, strategy, and social awareness, having built a 15-year career across 2 of the industry's most influential brands before leaving that work for the nonprofit sector. Amy serves on the boards of the Latino Arts Foundation and Nonprofit Connect, and she is an alumni of the Centurions Leadership Program facilitated by the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, and thank you, Emily and Catherine and the Nerman for inviting me to come be a part of this. I did do a Third Thursday once before with that team from Plug, so it's kind of nice to be back in this context, but thank you. So here we are, and thank you all so much for spending some of your Zoom time with me. I know that we can get fried on the Zooms, so it's late in the day, and if you reserve some of your energy for this, I'm really grateful. So Charlotte Street Foundation, for those that might not know, is it's a resource in Kansas City that is centered on artists and artist-centered work. So a little bit more about us. This is our wordy mission statement. The less wordy version of it is that we're here to challenge, resource, and cross-pollinate a multidisciplinary community of contemporary artists in Kansas City. We've been around for a long time, for 23 years. We started in 1997. And over that time, Charlotte Street's evolved. It started off as an organization that mostly did grants. And then over the years, as the needs of the community evolved, we started doing presenting work of exhibitions. We started as a visual arts organization. We now work across multiple disciplines, including performing artists. So we try to evolve, and we try to be responsive to the needs of the community as they arise. We obviously can't cover all the needs. There's many of them, but we do what we can to support artists practicing in Kansas City. Charlotte Street is a little different than, kind of a general arts organization. We have some really specific values that we hold up and that we filter our work processes through. So specifically, those 4 tenets or values of Charlotte Street's work are risk, openness, collaboration, and excellence. And those are actually the filters that we use for all of our programs, for all of our hiring. This is a, for lack of it's like the scoring card that we use to make those decisions. So Charlotte Street, first I'm going to talk about all of our programs. And before I get into it, what I'll say is that Charlotte Street is kind of one of those organizations that we have so many different kinds of programs. We are an ecosystem. So within ourselves, there's a lot of different kind of platforms and ways that artists are supported. And a lot of times, artists will come to know about one of those platforms, and they might not know about all the rest. So before we get into kind of where we're at right now, I want to give kind of our broad scope of all the things we do. So exhibitions, some folks might know us for exhibitions. We have at different points in history had a multitude of spaces throughout Kansas City, and I'll talk in a minute about where our exhibitions will really be happening going forward. But as a community member, you may have come to a Charlotte Street exhibition at, say, La Esquina when it was open, or Paragraph Gallery. Those spaces aren't around anymore, but we have a new exhibition space that we'll be talking about in a bit. And in terms of exhibitions, those are planned a couple of different ways. We have a curatorial fellow, which we actually just announced this week, someone new who's come on Our curatorial fellowship program is a way to integrate up and coming emerging curators across the country with artists in Kansas City. So recently we hired Kimi Katada, who is a emerging curator out of the West Coast. And so she'll be in Kansas City for about 2 years, working with artists here to develop some exhibitions. We also have an open call program. So we have a rolling open opportunity where if you are a cultural producer and you have an idea for an exhibition or a program, you can pitch that to our open call. And then we do, once we've placed curator programs and open call programs, sometimes Charlotte Street as a programming staff kind of does a reflexive thing, and we look at that calendar and we're like, what is it missing? And we try to come up with some programs that fill those gaps to give us a really robust year. And in a typical calendar year, Charlotte Street is hosting often over 100 exhibitions and programs over the course of the year, and they're almost all free. The only time there's ever something that's ticketed, sometimes when we have performance things, because the overhead in those is a little bit more, sometimes the artist will choose to have a ticketed event, but it's very rare. Performances, that kind of leads us into performance. Like I said, Charlotte Street started off as a visual arts organization, but over the years, and particularly the past 10 to 15 years, we have been involved in performance. We started hosting one-off kind of events at La Esquina, and originally La Esquina was actually built with performance in mind. But it did evolve to be kind of more of a hybrid space where exhibitions and performance were both happening. And so at some point a couple of years ago, we decided we wanted to have a venue that was specifically dedicated to performance because we wanted to do more to work with performance artists. So Capsule, which is on Broadway or was on Broadway, was a space that we operated for a little over a year. I think it was about a year and a half. And the point of that was to kind of develop a more steady drumbeat of working with performance artists because we knew we would be opening a performance space as part of our big headquarters project that I'll talk in a little bit more too. But we work with dancers, we work with musicians, performance artists, sound artists, really just and actually, like, the more hybrid they are, oftentimes the more exciting the opportunity might be for us. But lots of different kinds of artists working in a performance sphere. Awards. So like I said before, Charlotte Street actually started as an award program, and it was specifically for visual artists at that time, and it was a much smaller amount than it is today. But the Charlotte Street Awards have over time supported tons of artists living in Kansas City. Like this says, over 100. And the amount of money that we give out every year, it's usually about $10,000 that come in grants to 3 different visual artists and 2 different performing artists. The visual artists also receive an exhibition in tandem with that opportunity. And sometimes it's with the Nerman Museum. Sometimes it's with the H&R Block Art Space. It's been with the Kemper in the past also. So that's a rotating opportunity. We also have an award called the Rocket Grant Awards. With the Charlotte Street Awards that I was talking about before, that's more of it's like a portfolio-based award. You can only get it once, and it's like about the scope of your career, and again, are you pushing Kansas City forward as a contemporary artist? The Rocket Grant Awards are a little different. These are more project-based, and it's a smaller amount of money. It's a $6,000 award at most. There's smaller awards for research and development within those grants. This is a partnership with the Spencer Museum of Art and the Andy Warhol Foundation. Andy Warhol Foundation fully funds it, and then we partner with the Spencer Museum to execute it. The Rocket Grants are also a little different in that they are available to an 80-mile radius of Kansas City, Missouri. Some of our other opportunities are a little bit more local to the metro area, but this is a little more broad. And that's great because it means that we get to work with artists in some rural spaces that are a little bit more outside of the Kansas City area and build some relationships across those geographies as well. Rocket Grants are really inspiring to me. You see a real range of the kinds of projects that happen here. They all are supposed to be public-facing art projects, and usually they're really provocative and kind of about getting folks to either work collaboratively outside of just the arts sector, working in spaces that are kind of unpredictable as arts venues. So this is a really great program. I'll speak a little bit about where that's at right now. Residencies. Charlotte Street has a residency program, which for years and years has been downtown. We host about 30 plus artists, and I say plus, it's a squishy number because we have a couple of shared spaces that, depending on the schedules, the number changes a little bit year to year. But about half of those are visual artists, and the rest are performing artists and writers. We actually have about 5 to 6 spaces for writers in a given year. And this program is really comprehensive. It is about free studio space, so artists that are selected for the residency, and it's a juried process like most of our opportunities are, they receive the space for free for up to 2 years. But they also receive a lot of kind of platforms for visibility, and we really encourage collaboration across the residents. It's multidisciplinary residency, so there's a lot of opportunity there for artists to meet artists in other disciplines, which is really exciting. And then, in a year where we're not having a pandemic, we're connecting those residents to critics and curators, and we have an open studios event. And it's fun because it's not just the space, it's the space plus programs. So it's a really great opportunity that our program manager for the residency, Pat Alexander, is the point person for this particular opportunity. We did a couple of years ago start a thing called the Startup Residency. And this residency is very particular. We have a couple of spaces across the metro. This is one of them, the Black Box on Truce. And then we have a couple of others in the Northeast that I'll show in a minute. But they all are spaces that we pay the rent, we keep the space going, and we held a jury for what are artist-run organizations that could use a little boost for a couple of years, not have to pay rent, get in, really focus on their programs, really focus on, kind of getting their feet under themselves before hopefully branching out, at the end of their residency and kind of going on to operate outside of the realm of Charlotte Street. So the thinking behind this is that, there's a really healthy and exciting history of artist-run sort of projects and opportunities in Kansas City. There's not a ton of funding for it. And so this was an idea to kind of get people to the point that hopefully they could be a little bit more sustainable when they're in those early startup stages, and also help them build a little bit of network with other arts nonprofits and organizations. So right now, Black Box on Truce, which is run by Cynthia Hardiman, she's awesome. And she's been operating projects out of the Black Box for some time. And then at the Arts Block, so this is in the Northeast, near Pendleton Heights, there are actually 3 organizations there, Casey Public Theater, the African American Artists Collective, and then the Kansas City Society for Contemporary Photography. And so they haven't really got the chance to start in a big, exciting way because they all moved in during the pandemic, but they've all set up shop there and are kind of getting settled in. And then we're going to be working with them on, what's the experience they can get out of having this space at this time. So I'll take a little breath here. That's kind of the scope of our usual operations. And I say that we also have a lot of one-off things that'll tend to pop up that we'll do. We've run billboard project downtown. You'll see little opportunities come up that Charlotte Street will put out to the community. But these are kind of our core. And you'll see that they kind of fall into 3 categories. There's grants, there's residencies, and then there's this kind of exhibition opportunity. And those are kind of the 3 buckets that we do. But we also break that rule all the time and do things that are outside of those. But those are sort of the anchors we found really help support our art community in a really meaningful way. and perpetually. We've never found that, oh, now's not, we should just stop doing grants now. Like that's just never happened. We'll probably keep doing them forever. But we do sometimes have situations, like right now, when we're in the middle of a global pandemic, where all of a sudden, you know, just the needs are changing dramatically. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how Charlotte Street has shifted at this time, and the kinds of things that we're offering right now for artists, given the really different context we're all operating in. So Rocket Relief, and it's getting cut off a little bit down here, but Rocket Relief is something that we're doing in partnership with a couple other organizations. So I want to make sure I let you know that. But so this kind of started with the Rocket Grants that we do with the Andy Warhol Foundation and the Spencer. Andy Warhol Foundation came to us and they were like, you know, this is happening, and we wonder if we should be pivoting right now and changing this opportunity, at least temporarily. And we were super excited to work with them on that. And so we were able to open up this Rocket Relief program. And so we've worked with the Spencer and then with Arts KC, who also came on as partners, to basically change this grant opportunity for a, you know, a temporary amount of time to emergency grants. So these grants are $1,000 grants, and they are open to artists who have lost income due to COVID-19. To date, we've raised about $200,000 for this particular effort, and those grants, it's 200 grants that we've been able to raise and grant. We have about 2 weeks left in this process right now. So we've gone through 2 different cycles of Rocket Relief. We had the first cycle in the summer. Right now we're in the kind of middle of the second cycle, and we do anticipate that there will be a third. So we're not done with this. When we, in the first cycle alone, we had something like 600 artists apply. I'll just tell you guys for context, like in a usual year when we have the awards program, it's like 120, 150 people apply for those opportunities. So 600 people applying for something is a huge shift for us. And so we're trying to continue to raise money for this effort and to really focus on it. And it's been pretty central to a lot of what we've been doing lately. The selection process is entirely different than we normally do. It's a weighted lottery. There's a lot of different ways that people run emergency grants. A lot of times it's first come, first serve. We didn't think that was the right thing to do because it would literally have been gone day one. So we tried to find something that left people space to kind of look for this opportunity ongoing, because we knew that people's situations would be changing. So anyway, we chose this weighted lottery process. 10 artists are selected weekly. It's weighted by risk. So if there's a part of the application that's indicating risk factors that might be impacting you at this time, and those figure into the lottery. It's still a lottery. Everyone that's eligible has a chance, but the risk factors kind of weigh how often you are showing up in the lottery. This is for artists of all disciplines, and it's for artists within an 80-mile radius. There are no restrictions for the use of these funds. They're not for a project. They're not for you know, you to do an exhibition necessarily, unless that's what you want to do. But really, the impetus and the thinking behind this was people are having you know, a lot of dramatic loss right now, and we want to be a resource for them in that moment. And we have been really lucky in working with both the Spencer and Arts KC, who have really jumped in and worked with us every step of the way. We actually have like weekly calls on Rocket Grants or on Rocket Relief, and we're constantly sort of looking at what's happening with it and figuring out, you know, okay, so in the next cycle, do we need to make these tweaks? What do we need to do? And an example of that is in this second cycle, we looked at the CDC released a lot more information after we had initially started, and we learned that Black, Indigenous, and other people of color were really being the most impacted. So in the second cycle, we made a call that this is actually going to go 60% to folks who identify that way. And so we just continue to make adjustments, and we'll look for what needs to happen in the third cycle. On our website, if you're really interested in numbers, and if you're a super nerd like me, we do have a breakdown of like the first cycle and what we saw in that, and you can get to that on our website and learn a little bit more about kind of what the landscape is right now for artists and the need that's there, because it's big. So Rocket Relief, and like I said, we're still in this. We don't know how long we'll need to do this. We know that COVID's going to go for a while. We don't anticipate that this is something that we'll do for 2 or 3 years. I mean, we have a sense that we might be still rocket reliefing through next year to some degree, but it is meant to be something temporary, and then we will shift gears and go back to rocket grants. So I might answer some questions there. We also got into this program called Art Where You're At. So the point of Art Where You're At was to do something that would spur making or reward making. Artists are going to do what they're going to do. And thankfully, there were a lot of artists making work in the pandemic and finding ways to operate that were safe, or as safe as possible. And so what you're seeing here, these are some stills from different programs that were funded by Art Where You're At. This is a micro grant. It was just $500. And it was a short application that folks had to put together. And then, we're seeing some really fun things come out of it. This was a walk, Cape Brennan in, this is the Northeast, and they did this kind of dance walk performance, and there were a lot of musicians involved in this as well. This was selected from Harold Smith did a online magazine called Black Summer, and it was like all artists of, specifically African-American artists in Kansas City that he featured in that. I think this is Kwanzaa Humphrey, I think. And then Julia Varing is doing this performance-based project where she is working outside of, she's a social worker, and she does a lot of work with people in nursing homes. And so she's doing these performances that are distanced and kind of outside, but in view of nursing home folks. And that's been really incredible to kind of see come about. So we do have this project, Art Where You're At, which is what they're actually calling their performance. Melinda Hedgecorth is doing this on Friday at the Alcott Center. So there's a couple of these coming up. If you want details about those events, they're happening on our website and Facebook. And then this is another sort of pivot we made. So obviously this, I say that, this is something we've actually been working on for a long time, but our staff has been like deeply involved in some internal work around anti-racism culture in the arts, and specifically in our organization. And, this summer we were kind of watching what was going on with George Floyd and the civil unrest that was happening. And we were listening to artists respond to that, and we felt that, there was a want and a need for conversations about that. So this is a series that we're putting together in collaboration with the Open Table, which is an anti-racism training cohort in Kansas City. And we worked with them ultimately because there were a lot of artists there that are trainers. So they developed this 4-part training module to kind of talk about racism and anti-racism culture in the arts. And so we've had one of those, and we've got 3 coming up. And then right now, I think we're kind of trying to decide if we would do another series of this in the spring or not. But for now, it's this workshop series. But it has started a conversation for us about what kind of dialogues and series can we be hosting in the interim of COVID that can be a way for us to kind of operate as a community and speak to each other about meaningful things, even though we can't be next to each other and spend time together. So those are probably the three like sort of major ways that Charlotte Street has tried to shift while COVID has been happening and while we've all been kind of reeling in this, what do we do now? And we're looking at next year. Programming for next year could look different yet. We do think some of these programs that we've started this year that were kind of COVID contextual will continue or evolve. But we may be doing other things as well. We're kind of trying to figure out what could we be doing outside on our grounds that start to bring people to the campus, even if we're not opening up the inside building to the public. So those are some things that we're kind of thinking about. So you heard me reference the campus. Before all of this was going on, Charlotte Street for the past 5 years has been working on this huge campus project. And I call it a campus because the entire concept behind it was that, you know, Charlotte Street, as I pointed out in the beginning with the programs, had all these different sort of platforms or disciplines or avenues of work that were happening, but oftentimes those things happened in a silo and they weren't really talking to each other, and they weren't cross-pollinating in the way that we liked. And we had observed for years and years in the residency that when you got artists physically proximally together, they do come up with really interesting collaborations and ideas, and even just like the peer competition of being around each other. It sparks good dialogue. This is what art school does for folks. You know, it's like you're together and you're making each other better. So we really wanted to think about that. And there were other reasons that went into why we would go about seeking a building. But long story short, we did it. And now we have the Charlotte Street campus at 3333 Wyoming. And we finished construction on this building in the spring. So COVID is happening, it's March. We're supposed to have our big grand opening in May. And May happens and no people. And so, you know, it was one of those moments where you're just kind of like, well, we're not doing that thing we thought we were going to do that we've been working on for a really long time. And that's okay. You know, it's just what needs to happen right now. And so we are here in this building. I'm in this building right now. This is a real picture. It looks fake. It looks like a rendering, but it's real. And so, you know, I guess where I'm at with this right now is, it's really exciting to think about, you know, we are going to need to come together again. It's going to happen. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But when it does, I think we're all going to be so eager for, you know, what being in real space with each other is. And I think that this space is truly built for that. And, you know, it's going to be a platform that's really speaking to us at that time. I want to show you some transition stuff. This is a before and after of the courtyard. So this is the building we bought. It was the color of a Band-Aid and it was in a gravel pit. And we worked with Huft Projects, which is an architect that's right down the street from us. They're our neighbors. So Huft Projects and Newkirk Novak Construction, and they were brilliant and came up with all kinds of amazing solutions for the ways the artists are going to use this space. And the first thing I'll talk about is this courtyard, because, well, it's exciting because I do think that it's one of the things we will be able to use in the interim COVID times, but this was intended to be an outdoor sort of pavilion. So we can have dance out here, we can have, and this, you can't see it right here, but it is a staggered sort of, you can sit there, it's like outdoor seating. This is a really pretty picture. Thanks again to Huft Projects for that. They took them. But that's that same courtyard at a different angle. And you can kind of see here, this whole glass area looks out onto the courtyard. So, you know, we're just kind of thinking about, we tried to set up a lot of opportunities for artists to sort of hack the building. Like all these things where, you know, you might do something with these windows, you might do something with this balcony, you might do something with this courtyard. So actually, I don't know how many of you in the presentation are artists, but what I will say is like, look for that and think about what to do with it, because we're going to be looking for you to come up with all the things that you want to do with this space that we haven't thought of. This is some fun. Those of you that know Pat will appreciate Pat in here for physical reference, but these are some beginning shots of the building on the inside. So it was a really big empty warehouse, and it was actually for medical supplies that was like being built and also stored here. This is a really gross office space that had a closet bathroom and some weird stuff here. There was a nice hanging coffee pot that we couldn't figure out. So this is just what it looked like when we got here. And this is what it looks like now. So we actually had to build a mezzanine. We built like a whole floor in this building to make room for the performance residency. The performance residency has its whole own floor. And there's a dance studio here, which I'll show in a minute, and the music rehearsal space. So there's a few shared rehearsal spaces and then also some individual studios. This is kind of the main lobby area. And here you'll see like where you would walk in. There's sort of, the lobby is connected by like a major kind of throughway, and there's two different entrances. So this is the south entrance, and then on the opposite side is the north entrance. The north entrance kind of walks you right into the gallery, and the south entrance walks you right into what'll be the black box performance space right there. So this is the library. We've never had a library before, and so how this came about was we were kind of thinking about different things we wanted to do that were more like, almost more like just community centric. It was like, okay, well, we want to have a place where folks can have a meeting, a gathering, an informal small gathering if they want, or we wanted a space where we could have our jury panels and you know, have a proper place to kind of handle that. But we also wanted a place where we could do workshops. And then we wanted an archive. So, you know, Charlotte Street has done a couple of projects over the past, like there were these opportunities where we were archiving Kansas City's artist history and artist run history. And we really wanted to build on that so that when we do a lot of connecting with national curators or critics or artists, and we wanted, when they're with us, even though it's like a short amount of time, we wanted to connect them really quickly to here's some information about what has happened here in Kansas City and what's happening now. And so as we build the library, that'll kind of be the anchor for that. This is our gallery space. So the gallery is, it's great. It's like 1,600 square foot, wood floors. These walls are all like plywood backed, so they hold a lot of weight. The lights up top, they have like a color change feature where they can be like literally any color, and it could be just like these back here that are all green, which is kind of cool, you know, just in terms of what artists can do with that. There's a great load-in dock. There's a small media gallery back here that can be more isolated. So really great gallery space. This is the performance space, and then a support space. We have a little green room for our performance space. The performance space is a little bigger than the gallery, and it's got, you know, lighting grid. There's a tech booth. It can be white walls or it can be a fully black box kind of space. We have a curtain that will block all that out. So that's really exciting. This space also has a garage door that opens out to the courtyard. So it's really cool. You can kind of be in and out of this space and kind of blur interior and exterior. This is studio space. So this is the music rehearsal studio. And we have a couple private studios up in that mezzanine now for performance artists, which we've never really had space like that where it's really meant for one person in performance. So we're excited about that. The top floor of the building is the studio residency, visual artists and writers. So you can kind of see what some of those spaces look like. There are two different sizes. There's some bigger ones and some smaller ones. Everything was built with this clear story window, so you can like have some natural light, but you also get a lot of wall space. We do have a couple of studios that don't have the windows, that are interior studios for people that don't want any light at all. They want to have all the control. Concrete floors. This is the artist lounge that's up top. So we wanted to have a space for folks to come and, you know, sort of stay all day if they need to, and also to collaborate with each other. So one more before and after shot of the outside. This is what the north side of the building looks like. If you're coming up Wyoming to visit us, that's how you'll find us. There's the big C. You can't miss it. And this is what it looks like at night. And I don't know, we're really excited to think about populating this space. And, you know, right now I think we're in the planning stages we're in the planning stages again of what that will be like. And I don't know, I guess I'm letting myself get excited again is what I will say. So that's kind of that. And I'll stop sharing so we can see faces.
I will just go ahead and turn my video off and pass it over to Emily to moderate the Q&A. But if I see anything that is getting missed in the chat, I'll just read it out loud.
Thanks, Catherine. Wow, so I think it's the performing arts person in me that wants to go, all right, Amy, I miss applause. So I'm just gonna give you a little round of applause here. So, you know, between the programs you've been doing and the Rocket Relief and this new building, I mean, you have so much to really be excited about and to be proud of. So I want to come to that courtyard and check it out. It looks really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll get started with some questions now. So if you guys have things that you'd like to ask Amy, please put it in the chat and we will get those going. A question that occurred to me as I was watching was, you know, you made a shift from a for-profit industry in the greeting card industry, and you made a choice to move to nonprofit and work with artists directly, which has been so great. So tell us about the process and how you made that decision.
Well, I mean, I'm an artist myself, and you know, I think I went into a commercial art industry because I was somebody who didn't have a lot of money. I came into art school with a lot of debt, frankly. Like, I came out of art school with a lot of debt. So I'd have a job. And, you know, the greeting card industry, I could get behind because the thinking behind it was like, we exist to connect people. Like, that's the goal. And I'm like, man, you know, yes, please, like, let's connect people. And so I actually really loved working in the greeting card industry, and it was great. And I didn't actually expect to have the opportunities I had to like really think outside of a greeting card. I spent like a good half of my career like doing work that had nothing to do with a greeting card at all. And so that was awesome. But then like simultaneously I was doing my own studio work. I'm married to an artist, so we were both in that world. And then, you know, and then I developed with my partners at Plug, like we came together and we started this exhibition space. And I had been doing independent curating before that, but that experience was really for me this moment where I was like, oh man, like, I mean, I want to be doing this. This is great. And like being a part of the art community in that really deep and meaningful way, where we were engaging with other artists constantly, and we were creating platforms and opportunities for artists to engage with each other. That was incredible, and it was life-changing for me. And I honestly never expected to be able to do that as a career. But then the opportunity at Charlotte Street opened up, and I honestly waited forever to apply, because I just, you know, it was just one of those things where it was like, man, I just don't know if they would even think about me for this role. And it was a programming role that I actually applied for. It was an artistic director kind of role. But anyway, I got to come on, and that was amazing. And it's been amazing, even though it's been really difficult ever since. It's been incredible. And so, you know, nonprofit world, I didn't know about nonprofits in this sort of super deep way until I came on at Charlotte Street. And then I got involved with Nonprofit Connect because I wanted to learn about it. And I don't know, it's been really interesting to learn about what that structure really is. And I do think I came to it because I care about doing meaningful work, and I think this is truly meaningful work. So I mean, I'm happy to be a part of that, even though there are challenges and limits and limitations and all kinds of things that come with nonprofits that I'm still kind of working through.
Thank you. Wow. So we have a question that's come in on the Q&A. So Tara is asking, what are your strengths as a leader, and what advice do you have for young artists who want to become leaders in their own communities?
Man, well, I think that I've been learning a lot as a leader in the past several years. I think what I'm learning like I'm kind of new to being an arts administrative leader, but I think it's so important. So I go back to my Plug experience. Like the experience at Plug was that we actually didn't really have a leader. Like Plug was like completely collaborative, and I loved that about it. And so now at Charlotte Street, you know, in the nonprofit world, it's not the same. But I feel like we've worked really hard to build a really amazing team. And there's so much to just kind of working with the strengths of that team and with the strengths of this art community, because this art community is amazing. And I think that, you know, they lead, and then internally the staff leads. And then honestly, I'm just, you know, I'm kind of here for the ride a little bit, but I think that that's what I would recommend you do if you were interested in, you know, doing this kind of work. It's like, you kind of have to let other people lead.
Great, thank you so much. So we have a couple questions here about what's happening right now in your building. Are you still currently offering studio space? Are you going to be getting high school students involved in the programs at Charlotte Street? We've even got a question here about somebody who'd like to apply for Rocket Relief, but they're under 21. So any plans to extend that or make that available?
Yeah. So first sorry, there were several questions in there about the youth question. What I'll say about that is that our mission has always been centered on professional artists, and that's a pretty big mission. There's not a lot of other support structures out there for professional level artists once they get out of school. So we've really focused our energy there. There have been instances where artists have done their own work with youth or with high schoolers, or, you know, and in those situations, like that might be happening in our building, or but it's not necessarily being like led by us. Or say like there might be a Rocket grant where it's really youth focused. But again, that's us funding an artist project that happens to be working with youth. I don't think that we would be expanding our mission anytime soon, because we can't meet our mission now. Like the need is so great. We're still doing what we can to meet the needs of professional artists. But I certainly respect and acknowledge the needs for youth artists, because I mean, that was me too. And you know, I think that there are some other arts organizations in town that do that. And you know, we try to find ways to support the artists that are supporting those efforts as well. And there was another part to that question, I think in the beginning, Emily, that I might have missed.
In the building, are you still offering studio space, and how can people apply for that?
Yeah, so the studio space, we are still running the studio program. It got a little bit wonky. So the idea was that we were going to be finishing up in Town Pavilion, where the studio residency currently is. We were supposed to be closing that up in the fall. Those artists lost a couple of months to COVID. That, you know, was when the city was literally shut down and you couldn't go anywhere. So what we did was we worked with Copic and Brooks that own that building to extend our lease to the end of the year. So they're in that building for a few more months. And then when that's over, we kind of have a transition plan for moving folks over here. There will be another cycle of the residency that will open up, I hope, spring, summer. That's kind of the plan. And we will probably see some of the residents that are currently in the residency moving over in the interim in December. So that's kind of yes, we're still running residencies and the timeline is a little weird, but everything is still going.
Great, thank you. So we have a question. Somebody noticed that all 3 visual art fellows are women at the present time. So is equal representation for female artists one of your goals?
Well, equal representation, equity in the arts, period, is one of our goals. We have an equity statement, we mean it, and that is actually in every jury selection process. You know, we talk with the jurors about this means something to us, and when you are making your selections, we want you to think about the like scorecard, which is everything we just said about like risk and excellence and you know, what you're doing in the art community. That's the scorecard. But we also want you to think about, like, if you come at the end of this and it feels, you know, like these are all the same faces we've seen in the art community forever, like, we want to look at that. And so jurors make the decisions ultimately about like who wins the awards and who gets into the residency. But the criteria we give them at the beginning includes that. So, and I actually, I'll just say, like, I was surprised and like kind of excited about like our group of artists this year being like the first group of all female artists. It's certainly not something that we're like overtly pushing, like make sure they're all ladies. I mean, you know, that's not something we're doing. But I was kind of, it's kind of cool to see, because I can't tell you how many years it was all men. And so it is nice to kind of see that happen, even if it's just occasionally.
Right, thank you. So does Charlotte Street regularly conduct surveys or compile regional data that addresses the economic impact of the artistic community? And if you do, do you make that available to other nonprofits?
So it's a good question. We don't specifically, I mean, so Arts KC does an economic prosperity survey. So there's somebody in the community doing that, and it is published, like it's published, you have access to it. We don't do that, but we do use their numbers, and we do look at our own internal like demographics, and we look at our own internal, we actually have a, in our application, there's something that you self-indicate, like, you know, if you fall under a certain income line. So we have a sense of how our artists are operating in the economy. But no, we're not trying to figure out, we're trying to support artists, frankly. And so we'll use the information that we can find, or the research we can find about how to do that, but we're not actively like trying to create the surveys. We do actively create surveys and conversation about like artist satisfaction. So this year we were working with some other organizations in town this past like a year ago now to like have this, we called it the Artist Voices Summit, but it was basically like a huge focus group. There were like 80 artists there to talk about their experience in the art community in Kansas City. And then we were developing responsive programming to that. And we've had a lot of other like smaller efforts related to that. So we are constantly looking to artists to kind of like see what's important to them, what are we missing, what is the community missing, to drive those kinds of conversations.
That's great. Yeah, I will mention Arts KC worked with Americans for the Arts to do a prosperity survey. I think they did it twice over the last 5 years. So yeah, that information's on the Arts KC website if anybody wants to go and check it out. Another question, any chance for further collaborations with other countries like Morocco, for example?
For example, maybe. I guess it would depend on what the opportunity is. And so, you know, we have to be kind of smart about how we spend our money. Like if we are doing like exchanges, you know, with we've done that before, where we've done exchanges with like people in LA or people in Oklahoma, or so like things like that, where we're like sending people to a different city, or sending work, even artwork, to a different city. It gets really pricey to do things like that out of the country. So we are now though talking about ways to generate conversation and collaboration, you know, especially now in like a digital format. So that's something that now that people are zooming around and they're really comfortable in their little windows, I think that we have more opportunity to kind of have an international dialogue. But in the past, it's been sort of cost prohibitive for us to do that in any real meaningful way. So yeah, but that's another opportunity shift that we're seeing right now.
Great. So is there a place for screenwriters in your organization?
Yeah, screenwriters would qualify as writers, and the writing residency, which we have like 5 slots, that is certainly open to screenwriters. And I would say we've had films, like small films, produced as part of Rocket Grant projects. So that's another place where screenwriters could get involved. Yeah, and there's probably a lot more ways that could happen. And I think that's why we have an open call, because it's kind of like, if you have projects or you have things you want to pitch, put it through that open call and we'll kind of figure out how it fits in. But yeah, I could totally see screenwriters having a spot or having a space with us.
That's great. So I have 2 final questions for you. So first of all, if people want to know about the next round of Rocket Relief, if they want to know how to rent a studio, how much it costs, other grant opportunities, can they go to your website and tell us again what that is?
Yes. So charlottestreet.org it's a pretty comprehensive website. There's all of our programs that are existing are on there, and you can find like old applications if the application isn't open right now. So you can kind of get a sense of like, okay, what do they want? Like, what do I have to do? Most of our processes do go through like an online submission program. So, we'll ask you to attach things like images and your CV and all those kinds of things. So you might want to have those ready or start. It is, applying to things takes time, and it's something to kind of prep for. So it's worth checking those timelines out. So yeah, everything's there. If you want to kind of be really in the loop and catch, like, when we send out like e-blasts, whenever our opportunity, we actually send them out like kind of weekly or semi-weekly, depending on how much is going on. And not only are we like letting people know about the things we're doing, but oftentimes we're kind of pushing things either our artists that are doing or other organizations. So you should probably sign up for that. We also push a lot of things through Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. So it's just kind of like, if you want to know the steady stream of like when things are happening, I would just sign up for those things. And honestly, it's like constant. Like, I feel like we're constantly putting opportunities out there. So, don't feel like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this thing and then I might care about it once a year, because, like I said, we're trying to connect people all the time to other opportunities, even outside of Kansas City. We have relationships with like Pollock Krasner and Andy Warhol Foundation and all these other organizations that, a lot of times we're trying to like tell people about things they're doing too. So, yeah, you should just sign up for those things.
Yeah, I am on your email list actually, and I learn something new. It seems like every time I receive one, there's a new piece of information or a new program. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
And then just one last question. So, here we are in COVID times, you need your courtyard redone, or you need to have an event and you can't do it yet. And so sometimes it's hard to just kind of keep it going. So what inspires you? I mean, what helps you just get out of bed in the morning and keep doing what you're doing?
Oof. Yeah, we're all in it, aren't we? And I think, I'm lucky. I've got like a family that, as our little unit, like we're holding each other together. At work, we're holding each other together. I think it's about your people, like stay connected to your people. And I think we're really trying to think about that and how we can support that. I'll tell you one thing I've said, like, what I really miss is just like accidentally running into people, like, there's lots of folks that I might not like call up, like be like, hey, let's have a Zoom call, that I'm super happy to see when I see them. And so now I'm just kind of like, man, like, how do you just bump into, so I think we're trying to figure that little thing out. But I think, bump into people on purpose. Like, even if it is a Zoom or a phone call. I've had some late night phone calls with friends. I don't know. You just need to like know other people are out there. And I think that helps. And I'm an introvert extrovert, like right on that line. So like, but I still need people, and I think we all do. So
yeah, and be spontaneous, because nobody's doing anything, right? So they're probably going to be available.
You may as well just be like, so if and it's funny because I hate the phone. Like in normal times, I would hate the phone. I would be like, why is somebody calling me? Like, because you text and you email and you get so used to all of that. But like right now, I'm just like, call a person, just like all the old things, like write a person a letter, like do that stuff. And I mean, we did we were doing like kind of like surprise boxes or like care boxes for all the staff members,
yeah.
like, you know, dropping things off at their door and like stuff like that, you know, just like that people aren't expecting, I think is that's how I'm getting by in all this. And I'm still making work. And I think that's really important too. Like as an artist, like, you know, keeping that going somehow. And there are lots of people that aren't feeling it right now, and that's okay too. Like if you just don't feel like making work, you don't feel like making work, and you shouldn't give yourself a hard time about it. But I think even just like keeping a sketchbook or something like that, that is just like a practice, that's been helpful to me. So.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And thanks to everybody for coming to this month's Third Thursday program.